بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته, and welcome to Fiqh al-Muamalat online class. And we still with the Murabahah contract, and we have started last session the relationship between Murabahah contract and other related Sharia contract, and we started with the Wad, and we have highlighted some points related to the Wad, and today we carry on the discussion. The point of today is that the purchase orderer or the client shall compensate the seller the actual cost incurred. Of course, we are talking, if you remember the last session, we talked about that the clients may decline the execution of Murabahah, meaning that the clients will do the sign off of the purchase undertaking, and the bank will do the acquisition of the asset. But when the Murabahah supposed to be executed, the client declined the execution of Murabahah, meaning he didn't want to proceed with the transactions of Murabahah, and as a result of that, the bank will be exposed to some kind of difficulties and potential losses, because the bank will dispose the asset to a third party. So here is an implications. This point is the implications of that kind of actions of the client by the client. So what we are saying here is that the purchase order, who is the client, shall compensate the sellers because he declined the purchase of the commodity Murabahah, and the bank may dispose it to a third party, which may incur some losses. So the purchaser here shall compensate the seller for the actual cost incurred. Of course, the cost that to be recovered by the bank is the actual losses, not any number, not any amount, the way the bank wants to impose or indicate, but it is reflections of the actual cost. This is to reflect fair and justice and equity in the transaction, meaning he will cover only the cost incurred, but the bank is not allowed to take over and above the cost incurred. As income, of course, it may be collected, as you know, but it will be a channel to a charitable organizations, but cannot be part of the income of the bank. So cover the actual costs incurred in the acquisitions of the asset, and its disposal to a third party, because he declined to take the asset, so the bank will dispose it to a third party. And of course, the shortfall, if any, if there is any shortfall in the disposal price, compare disposal price compared to the purchase price, meaning the disposal price minus the purchase price. If there is any shortfall, that one has to be also recourse on the clients, and he will be liable for such decline to the execute of the Murabahah. And as you know, as we mentioned before, that the bank do the acquisition of the asset because of the undertaking, purchase undertaking of the client. Because of the word of the client, the bank do the acquisition of the asset. So if based on that, the bank will be indulged in such financial obligations, then the one become binding, and the client become liable for any potential losses as a result of his action. The following point is that Murabahah contract shall not be entered into prior to the purchase of the Murabahah asset by the seller. And I think this is the typical sequence and structure of the Murabahah, whereby the acquisition of the asset from the sellers will take place, then followed by the Murabahah to the clients. You cannot sell the asset to the client, and after that you do the acquisition of the asset from the supplier. This is a very important key point, and it is one of the very significant risk and non-Sharia compliance stated that could happen. Sequence is very important in the execution of Murabahah. So prior to the Murabahah, the acquisition of the asset from the vendor of the suppliers first. The following point is that in the event that the purchase orderer had purchased the asset from the supplier, the seller, of course, the seller in the MPO, which is typically the bank in this scenario, MPO arrangement shall establish his ownership of the asset either by terminating the purchase contract and entering into a new purchase contract with the suppliers, or by any other means of transfer of ownership, which is a compliance with Sharia. Here there is a scenario whereby, technically speaking, or based on the procedures in the process of Murabahah, the client will approach the bank first. Then, of course, the clients may contact the suppliers, may get the pricing, get the quotations, get the information, get the details. Based on that, approach the bank, and the negotiation will start. But in that point of time, there is no contract between the clients and the supplier. There is no contract because the bank is supposed to do the acquisition of the asset. But in this scenario is that when the clients come to the bank, the client has already purchased. The client has already purchased the asset. In this case, the Murabahah cannot be executed, and the Murabahah cannot, and the bank cannot carry on the Murabahah on asset which has been already acquired by the client. And the scenario suggested here is that terminations of the contract should take place first, and in Arabic we call it iqala. So meaning the iqala will be executed first, which means you terminate the contract between the client and the supplier. Then the clients and bank will switch position, meaning that the bank will become in the positions of the client, and the bank will carry on the execution of the contract, and the bank become the owner of the asset, and the bank become the purchaser of the asset. Then later on, upon the acquisitions of the asset will be sold to the clients via Murabahah. So in a scenario whereby the purchaser has already have a contract of purchase with the supplier or the seller, iqala has to be established first, meaning that a contract has to be terminated before you proceed to the Murabahah. Otherwise, you can't basically build the Murabahah based on asset which has been already owned by the client. The following point is that the purchaser orderer may request the seller to purchase the asset intended for the Murabahah transactions from specific market, place, or suppliers, meaning that the purchaser may negotiate with the client may negotiate with the bank. I need this machinery, but this machinery I want it from this country, let's say Germany, and from this specific company, let's say Bosch, for example. Or I want it from Japan, I need it from Toyota, for example, from this specific. Let's say he has the right to negotiate with the bank to determine the marketplace, to determine the suppliers, to determine the specific source of the asset that the clients wants. That is allowed. But on the other side, the seller, who is in this case the financial institutions or the bank, may decline the request for whatever reasons deemed reasonable by the seller or by the bank, as long as the asset fulfill the agreed specifications. Which means that this request from the clients could be accommodated by the financial institutions for no problem. So you want a specific machinery from Japan, from specific company, we can do that. But at the same time, the bank may decline the approach for whatever reason, and normally it is a reasonable reason. Either there is no business established with that company or with that countries, or whatever reasons that the bank is unable to proceed and carry on all this kind of transactions. So the matter is open for negotiation between the 2 points, between the two parties, whether they will carry on and execute the Murabahah based on the request of the clients, or the bank may opt for the options to cancel the transactions because he's unable to proceed with that. I think we'll stop here. This is additional point that has been discussed on the WAD, and still we have additional points on the Wad contract along with the Murabahah to be discussed inshallah in the coming sessions. With that, thank you very much, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.